This puzzle can't be solved beyond a certain point without some creative or strategic thinking. And if you follow along with me, you'll see two-string kites in this puzzle, as well as a skyscraper, an empty rectangle, an XY wing, and even a W wing. The W wing is what breaks the puzzle, and from that point on, it all unravels. I'll take you through the logic behind all of these strategies as we solve this puzzle together. Okay, let's go ahead and start this puzzle in the standard way. And right away, I can see there are just two cells remaining in this row. And what's missing? The 2 and the 3. So the 3 can't go here because of this 3. So this must be the 2. And then this is the 3. So we're off to a good start. Okay, now I'm going to run through the numbers 1 through 9 very quickly. And let's see. We have a 1 here and a 1 here and another 1 here. So I can pencil in 1s here and here. And just a reminder, I like to start off puzzles using Snyder notation, which is when you can only pencil in candidates when they are restricted to 2 cells in the same block. So these ones here are restricted to just these 2 cells in block 2, so that conforms to Snyder notation. When I use Snyder notation, I pencil in the candidates into the corners, but otherwise I use cell notation, and when I use cell notation, I put the candidates in the center of the cell. And I'll explain a little more about that later when I get to it, but for now, I'm just going to pencil in the numbers that are restricted to 2 cells in a block. That makes the puzzle much easier to solve in the beginning stages of a puzzle. Okay, let's move on to the number 2, and we have a 2 here and a 2 here. So I can pencil in 2s in block 9 here and here. And then we have a 2 here and a 2 here. So one of these 3 cells is a 2, and I'm going to leave that alone for now. We have a 2 here and a 2 here. So I can pencil in 2s in block 6. No, that's block 7. I can pencil in block 7 here and here. And let's see, we have a 3 here and a 3 here. So I can pencil in 3s here and here. What else can we do? Well, there are a bunch of 3s and they're all intersecting into block 7. So this has to be a 3. And there are a bunch of 3s all intersecting into block 9. So this has to be a 3. And here in block 5, I can pencil in 3s here and here. All right, moving on to the number 4. There's a 4 here and a 4 here. So one of these is a 4, and now there's a 4 here and a 4 here. So one of these 3 cells is a 4. I'm still using Snyder notation, so for now, that's not very helpful. Okay, 5. There's a 5 here and a 5 here. So I can pencil in 5s here and here. And we have a 5 here and here. So this can be a 5, and this can be a 5. And what about down here? We can pencil in 5s here and here. And since those 5s are locked into the first column, and there's a 5 in the third column, so that means the 5s have to go in the second column here and here. Okay, what about the number 6? We have a 6 here and a 6 here. So this has to be a 6. And now that means this has to be a 6. And now let's see. Okay, so this has to be a 6. And so now we have a 6 and a 6. So this has to be a 6. And now because of all these 6s, no, this 6 and this 6, and of course we have these 2 6s, so this has to be a 6. And did we just place all the 6s? Yes, all the 6s are placed. So now let's move on to the number 7. There's a 7 here and a 7 here. So this can be a 7, and this can be a 7. And let's see, I can pencil in 7s in block 1 here and here. So that means that those 7s are locked into column 3, and there's already a 7 in column 2. So I can pencil in 7s in block 4 here and here. Okay, I don't see anything else with the number 7, so let's move on to the number 8. And we have an 8 here, and an 8 here, and an 8 here. So that means this has to be an 8, and this can be an 8. Okay, what about the number 9? We have a 9 here, and a 9 here, and a 9 here. So I can put a 9 here and here. Now let's see. This column has just 2 cells left, and what's missing? A 4 and a 7. So this can't be a 4 since there's already a 4 in the block. So this has to be the 4, and this is the 7. And now there are just 2 cells missing in block 6. And what's missing? It's the 1 and the 7. So this can be a 1 and a 7. And this can be a 1 and a 7. So that means that if those 2 cells have to be a 1 or a 7, then this can no longer be a 7. And this is a 7. And because of this 7, this can no longer be a 7. So let's get rid of that. So this has to be the 7. All right, let's see what's missing in block 4. We're missing a 1, 8, and 9, a 1, 8, 9. So this cell can't be a 1 because of these 1s in the same row. This cell can be a 1, can't be an 8, it can be a 9, and this can be a 1, 8, or a 9. And this can't be a 1, so it can only be an 8 or 9. Okay, let's see what else we can do. And I might have to start filling in the rest of the cells if I can't find anything else. Okay, so I'm going to switch to cell notation, which is putting notation in the center of the cell. And that means that that refers to what the number in the cell can be, not relative to the block, but on its own, what numbers that this cell could be. So for example, this cell can be a 1. It can't be a 2, 3, 4. It can be a 5. Can it be a 6? Can it be a 6? No. 7? No. 8? Yes. 9? No. It can't be a 9. So this cell can only be a 1, 5, or an 8, and that's how we write the notation in the center for this cell. Actually, because these 5s are locked here, this cell cannot be a 5, so let me take that away. So this cell can only be a 1 or an 8. Okay, so at this point, I'm going to fill in all the cells with candidates, and that way we'll be able to see patterns more easily. So now all the cells are filled in with all the possible candidates for each cell, and we call that cell notation as opposed to Snyder notation. And in this case, we put the notation in the center of the cells, not in the corners. So now we can look around for possible patterns, and that's the advantage to doing this manually instead of using or letting the computer autofill it for you. You'll notice the patterns as you're filling in the candidates. So here I found a 489 in this cell, and a 489 here, and a 49 here. So I have 3 cells with 3 candidates, the 4, the 8, and the 9, and they're all in the same unit, that's block 2, so we have a naked triple. That means that these 3 cells have to be a 4, 8, or 9, those 3 numbers in those 3 cells, and so no other cells in the block can be a 4 or an 8 or a 9. So we can eliminate this 4, 9, and we can eliminate this 4, and this 4, 8. And so now we have a naked single here, the 1. And so now this can no longer be a 1, and here, and here. And now we have the 8s locked here in the top row in block 2, and there's nowhere else in block 2 that can be an 8. So the 8s are locked candidates, and one of these two cells has to be an 8. So there can't be any other 8s in the top row. So we can eliminate this 8 here and this 8 here. And now we have a 9 here and a 9 here. So these are the only two 9s in this row. And down here, this row has the same scenario, a 9 here and a 9 here. So again, only two 9s in this row. And these two 9s are in the same column. So we have a classic skyscraper pattern. So let me color the 9s pink. So we have a 9 and a 9 here. And here in the same column as the first 9, we have a 9 and here. So here's the logic that will help us to eliminate the 9s from the other two cells. Let's take a look at this top row. One of these cells has to be a 9, but we don't know which one. And then let's take a look at this row. Also, one of these two cells has to be a 9, but again, we don't know which one. And then the two rows are aligned here with column 3. So now let's play a what if game. If this cell is not the 9, let's say it's the 4, then this cell in the same row has to be the 9. And then this in the same column can't be a 9. So then this cell has to be the 9. So in this scenario, this cell would have to be a 9. Now let's flip that. Let's say that this cell is not the 9. Then this cell would have to be the 9. And then this cell could not be the 9. So then this cell would have to be a 9 since the row needs a 9. So either way, one of these two cells has to be a 9. So now any cell that sees both those two cells cannot be a 9, right? And this cell has a 9 and it sees both those cells, right? And this cell in the bottom row also sees both cells. So let's color those cells green. Okay, so this cell is in the same column as this cell and the same block as this one. And this cell also sees both. It's in the same block as this cell and the same column as this one. So these two cells that I colored green, they can see the two offset pink cells. And one of those offset cells has to be a 9. So the green cells cannot be 9s. So we can eliminate the 9s from the green cells. We can eliminate this 9 and we can eliminate this 9. And now we have a two-string kite pattern here. See, in this column, column 2, we have a pair of 9s. These are the only two cells in the column that can be a 9, right? Okay. And here in this row, we also have two 9s. And it's the only two 9s in this row. So we have a column with a pair of 9s and a row with a pair of 9s, and they are linked or intersect into the same block, block 1. So that is a classic two-string kite pattern. Now, any cell that sees both ends of the strings, here, let me color that pink and pink. These are the strings, and these are the 9s at the end. One of these 9s has to be true, so any cell that sees both ends of the string cannot be a 9, and therefore it can be eliminated. So here's a cell with a 3, 4, 9. Let's color that green. And this cell sees both ends of the string. It's in the same column as this endpoint, and it's in the same row as this endpoint. So we can eliminate the 9 from this cell, and we're left with a 3, 4 in that cell. Great. And again, I see the 9 forming another two-string kite here. We have a pair of 9s in this row, and a pair of 9s in this column, column 1. And they intersect or are linked into the same block, block 7. So yes, another two-string kite. So let's go ahead and color the two ends of the string pink again. And then the cell that sees both ends of the string is this one. Let's make it green. So we have two 9s here in this row, so one of them has to be true. And we have two 9s here in this column, and again, one of those has to be true. So again, let's play a what if game. If this pink cell is a 9, then this can't be a 9, so this could be a 9, and then this pink cell isn't a 9. Or what if this pink cell wasn't a 9? Let's play it that way. Then this cell would have to be a 9, and then this cell can't be a 9, so then this other pink cell would have to be a 9. So either way around, one of these pink cells has to be a 9. So this cell can't be a 9, and we can eliminate it. Okay, so now what? Okay, so let's see. Here we have a 9 in block 4, and a 9 here and here. So this is, let's see now. Okay, this is an empty rectangle. And then down here in the bottom row, we focus on the 9. We have this 9 and this 9. So this looks like an empty rectangle pattern. Let's see. Let's look back at block 4. So these 4 cells, they're already filled in with numbers 6, 3, 4, and 5. So these 4 cells form the empty rectangle on the number 9. That means that there are 4 cells in the same block that cannot contain the number 9. The number 9 is restricted to exactly one row and one column in the block. And that's the definition of an empty rectangle. So here we have the 9, and it's in this row and this column in block 4. And that leaves the other 4 cells empty of that number. Okay, so now that we've found the empty rectangle in block 4, then we have to look for a pair of 9s where one of the 9s is in either the same row or the same column as the 9s in the empty rectangle block 4. And they have to be the only 2 9s in that row or that column. And here in the bottom row, there's a pair of 9s. They are the only 9s in the row. And this 9 is in the same column as the empty rectangle 9s in block 4. So we have the 2 9s in the bottom row, and one of these 2 9s has to be true, right? Since there are only 2 of them in the row. So let's say this 9 in the bottom row, block 7, is true. Then this 9 in the same column can't be true. So the 9 in block 4 would have to be one of these 2 9s, right? But now let's say this cell in the bottom row, block 7, is not a 9. Then the other 9 in the row would have to be true. So either way around, either this cell is a 9 or one of these 2 cells in the empty rectangle block is a 9. So any cell that sees both can be eliminated. And this cell sees both 9s in block 4 and also the 9 in the same column. So this cell cannot be a 9 and it can be eliminated. Okay, now this is interesting. We have an 8, 9 in this cell here, and a 1, 8 here, and a 1, 9 here. So I think we have a pattern. Okay, this is an XY pattern, an XY wing pattern. And let's see, this cell has an 8, 9. It's a bi-value cell with an 8, 9, right? 2 values, that means bi-value. So let's call them X and Y, 8 and 9. And now this cell in the same column has the 8 together with another number. That's the 1, so let's call that Z. And this cell in the same block has the 9, also together with the number 1, or what we call Z. So this cell here with X and Y, or 8 and 9, is called the pivot cell. And these 2 cells, one with X, Z, and the other with Y and Z, Z being the 1, and X and Y being the 8 and the 9, These two cells are called the pincers, and one of the pincers has to be the Z candidate, or in this case, the 1. So any cell that sees both pincers cannot be a 1. And this cell sees both pincers, so we can eliminate the 1 from this cell. Okay, let's see why this is true. This cell here, the pivot cell, right, is either an 8 or a 9. So if it's an 8, then this cell has to be a 1. But if it's a 9, then this cell has to be the 1. So either way, one of these pincers has to be the 1. And that means this cell that sees both pincers cannot be a 1. So let's get rid of that 1. And so this cell has to be a 5. And once we placed that 5, this can no longer be a 5. And this can no longer be a 5. So it's a 9. And so now we can get rid of these 9s up here. And down here, this can no longer be a 9. So it's a 1. And now that eliminates this 1, right? And this is the only 5 in the row, right? Yeah. So this has to be the 5. And this is the only 7 in the row, so this has to be a 7. And that means we can eliminate this 7, and we can eliminate this 5, and this 5. Okay, now this is a 4-8 pair. So one of these cells has to be a 4 or an 8. So this cell can't be a 4. So it's a 9. And that means this can't be a 9 anymore. And in this column, we have a 4-8 and a 4-8. So that's a matching pair. So there can't be any other 4s or 8s in the column. So we can eliminate this 8 here and this 4 here. And so now we have a 4-8 and a 2-9 pair in this column. And if we look at the bottom row, we see there's only one 4 in the bottom row. That's a hidden single, and it's the only cell in the bottom row that can be a 4. So this cell has to be a 4. And now we can get rid of this 4, and that becomes a 3. And we can get rid of this 3, and so this cell is a 2, and this becomes a 3, and this is a 5. And we can get rid of this 5. So let's see. We have a 2-9 here and a 2-9 here. So we have 2 bi-value cells with the same candidates, 2 and 9. And now there's a 2 here and a 2 here. And these are the only 2s in the row, right? So one of these 2s has to be true. And they are linked with the other 2 bi-value cells. This 2 in the same column as this 2-9, and this 2 in the same block as this 2-9. So whichever of these 2 cells is the 2, one of these 2-9 cells would have to be the 9. This pattern is actually easy to spot, and it's called a W wing. All of these wings, from the simplest X wing and onward, they all work with a similar logic. The W wing needs to have 2 bi-value cells with the same candidates. So that's these 2-9 cells. Let's color them yellow for a change. And then those yellow cells are connected by a strong link on one of the candidates, and that's the 2s in this row. Let's make those green. And so the other candidate, the 9, can be eliminated from any cell that sees both 2-9 yellow bi-value cells. And this cell, let's make it pink, it sees both yellow 2-9 cells, and also this cell. It also sees both yellow 2-9 cells. This one is in the same row and block as this bi-value cell, and this one is in the same row and block as this one. And since one of those bi-value cells has to be a 9, we can eliminate the 9s from the 2 pink cells. So we can get rid of this 9 here and this 9 here, and that makes this a 5. And then this is a 1, which makes this a 2. And then this is a 9. And this is a 5. This is a 2, 9, 1, 8, 5, 2. And this is an 8, 8, 4, 9, 4, 8, 4, 8, 1, 4, 7, 8, 7, 1, 2, and 9. And the puzzle is done. Wow, that W wing at the end really helped crack the puzzle, but along the way we had some great strategies: the two-string kites, a skyscraper, an empty rectangle, and even an XY wing. What a great puzzle. Please give a thumbs up and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. Thanks for watching, and I hope you learned something.